Russ isn't here, so someone else.
Chris, what have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Just, end of season meetings and laying out, our off-season program, both on the court and the weight room, conditioning wise, and then, putting our calendar together for, recruiting, which never really ends, but with the calendar being changed by the NCAA and all the opportunities that we have and how much high schools are getting back involved, state associations in June, so it sort of changes what we do in the summer months. But, preparing for that.
With Joe and Wyatt putting their names in the transfer portal, when was that decision made, and do you know of anyone else on your team who plans to do that?
Well, all three of our walk-ons have put their name in the portal, so I don't know when those decisions were made, personally, but obviously they were in the computer when they were.
Did they not? So they didn't discuss it with you beforehand?
Oh yeah, they discussed it. I think, they discussed it.
Chris, go back a year. Now your world was kind of spinning this week, doing the tour and all that. And what's it been like for you? Kind of there were some bumps in the road. There was good times. There were different things. What's the year been like for you? Kind of in review.
It's been great. I mean, it's a year of sort of trying to figure out what to expect. You sort of go into this path with eyes wide open. And you're trying to learn new people and get established what you want to get established and establish the environment that you want for your players. But it's been great, and really excited about our future and where we go from here. But I didn't know a whole lot a year ago at this time. It was a whirlwind.
Obviously, as you put together a plan for the off season, it's totally different this year. How big is continuity of having a staff you've worked with the entire year and then having those guys still around? I mean, a lot of staffs by this time have been plucked and guys are here and there and everywhere, but you still have your staff right now, and it's got to be big.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very fortunate to have a staff that I really trust and believe in and know that those guys are, first and foremost, really good people, excellent coaches. They hold the respect of all our players, and they've established relationships with our guys over the last 12 months or so. I'm not naive enough to think that change doesn't happen. Change happens with your coaching staff. Change happens on your roster. There's always going to be, change, and being able to adjust is important. But I feel like everybody on our staff is going to be back. They have the same mindset as I do. We want to be better. We're going to be better. We're going to continue to establish the environment that we have our players in and what's important and the standards that we hold. And those guys know me, and they know what we're all about. That was a big reason why I hired Dino in the very beginning, because I didn't want to take several weeks to coach the coach. And I think that, that really helps with what we do in the off season when we're focused on the right thing. That's our players.
What will you remember the most about this year's team?
That we were able to get to the NCAA tournament in a year that I don't think many people thought we would. And selfishly for Akoi, Quan, and Cece. Cece and Quan had never been to the tournament. And so I really wanted them to experience what it's like to hear your name called, to be better than people expected, to, hold true, not to a promise that I gave them, but a belief that I held, and that is our team could certainly be an NCAA tournament team, and I would hate to come up short in their one and only chance to go somewhere else and be a part of that. So that's probably what I'll remember most, is that when they come back when they're 30 years old, or see them down the line, or they come back in the summer and they play pickup, I don't think they'll ever feel like they were let down by what they were told and what actually transpired.
Chris, other than Jordan and Steven, who are going through the draft process, do you anticipate the rest of your scholarship players to return?
It's 2019. You know, rosters are fluid. You know, so, you know, my job as I see it is to be very, very honest with our players, and I expect the same in return. I want them to be honest with me in terms of what their expectations are, you know, what I thought they did well this past year, what I think they need to work on, and, you know, I have to be as honest as a heart attack with them. And, you know, at times it's you know, you are on the complete same page of where we go forward, and sometimes there's got to be a lot of thought, both by the coach, by the player. So to say that, like, hey, we sit here and we're ready to go for 2019-20 in terms of what our roster look like, that would probably be inaccurate because I don't know. But I do know that we're never settled in terms of we're always looking to see how we can improve on our team.
How much, as a coach, how much more difficult does it make it with the transfer portal, with news, and every day it seems like there's 10 and 12 guys that are out there, and how difficult is it for you guys to manage that kind of stuff?
It's part of the job. You know, I don't know how to answer the question. I mean, everybody has difficulties in their job, and where that ranks, I mean, it's just part of the job. You know, when nobody cares when I played, it's just sort of like you did what the coach told you, and you know, now it's a little different. You know, and it's okay. It's just sort of who we're dealing with, and you know, it doesn't make kids any different. You know, at heart, but I think you have to have really good relationships with your guys and be honest with them. And you know, if this isn't the place for somebody, then you probably want to know sooner than later. But you know, job's always difficult, but it's what it is.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I know it's early, but what are you most looking forward to for the 19-2020 season?
Well, for one, I think that, you know, our players have so much better feel for expectations, standards, the environment that we've tried to establish for them. You know, what the expectations are from a work ethic standpoint. It's just you know, you're trying to establish that from day one, and now that sort of I expect our upperclassmen to have a regenerative leadership type of approach where the freshmen are learning from guys that have been through it. We didn't have that luxury this past year because the seniors, who were first-time guys here at Louisville, were looking at me like they'd never heard me introduce anything. And so I'd like to think that our older guys will be our best leaders. They better be our better leaders next year. I'm looking forward to having 13 guys on scholarship as opposed to 9, and the 10th one can't practice every day. Sort of hard to go 5-on-5 when you have 9 guys at times.
Last year you had to really kind of look at the grad transfer route, and obviously Quan and CC and Okoye came in. Do you, with such a big freshman class coming in, do you still kind of keep your eye out there to see what may be available, or are you good when it comes to that route this year?
We're always recruiting. You know, we don't we don't ever stand still, and that doesn't mean, nor should it be taken as I would ever force anybody out and tell them, hey, you're not welcome here. That's not how we do things. I've never done it that way. But again, rosters are a lot more fluid in today's day and age than they were even 10 years ago. Kids want to have immediate impacts. I will tell you, Kent, I don't think that we would add another freshman. I just feel like this isn't a football team. We have to have balance among the classes. And so that limits our options a little bit in the sense that we're good on incoming freshmen. But we'll always continue to look, whether that's adding a fifth-year guy, whether that's adding a sit-out transfer. We're always going to try to continue to establish, what we want our roster to look like and how we want it shaped.
I saw at least one mock draft. There were probably a few out there that had Jordan as a first-round pick. What are some of the things that he worked on and got better at as the year went along that you saw? Well,
I think it's evident he's a very talented scorer. I think part of that was he had a lot more opportunity this year. But, that opportunity wasn't just handed to him. He earned it. He was, our best offensive player from day one. He got a lot better defensively. I would tell you that he has a long way to go. And I think he knows that. I think that, whether you talk offense or whether you talk defense about Jordan, the great thing about him is he has a lot of room for improvement, a lot of room. And whether that happens here at Louisville or whether that happens in the NBA will be his decision, and he'll get the information, and we'll get the information over the next month and a half to 2 months for him to make the best possible decision that he can. But he's got a long way to go in terms of becoming the player I think he can be.
What's the challenge for next year as you try and shape your roster with two guys who who are in the draft process and you don't really know yet whether they'll be back or not?
Well, I don't know if it's you can't really fill a spot until one makes that decision. So that's part of the challenge. It would certainly change our look offensively because Steven and Jordan provide some some offense, and they do it in different ways than our other guys do. So that we have a long time in the off season. That decision can be made needs to be made by May 29th, and as long as we don't start practicing on June 1st, that'll give us enough time to sort of adjust how we need to play on both ends of the floor. The good thing about Louisville's academic schedule is, our guys are basically gone the entire month of May, whether you put your name in or you're just going home for, 4 or 5 weeks in the summer. So when guys come back for summer school like they did a year ago, you'll know who's on your team. And at that point, I'd say, only half the freshmen even have the opportunity to be here because they haven't graduated from their respective high schools. So we'll know a lot more when we're all reconvened here at the first available time in the summer.
So as you're looking at potential transfers maybe now, continuing to recruit, is there a specific position that you guys are focusing on, or kind of looking across the board and then you'll narrow that once you know what the roster will look like?
Yeah, I mean, we won't take the best available player approach and then try to fit him in to a roster. When we'll certainly hone in on some positions. And again, right now there are no positions open, but we're always looking.
I think the timeline is matched up where you could go overseas or go on a summer trip. Is that something that you guys have planned out or thought about? Or
that won't be for this summer.
This summer? Okay.
Yeah, that won't be for this summer. I think next summer that might be a strong possibility, but just getting our feet on the ground after 1 year, I just don't think it's in our team's best interest to.
When you look at this team, when you look back at this team, what kind of identity do you feel like they established with the mix of guys, especially the transfers? I mean, where do you feel like you all excelled in that area?
Well, I thought our team at the beginning of the year, I think after we played Pitt at Pitt, we were maybe 90th in the country defensively, and we had set a goal to be a top 25 defensive team, and we were falling woefully short. And I think our players, to a man, even from day one, knew that we weren't the most talented team in the league. And if we were going to, meet some of our goals, some of which we did, some of which we fell short, some were lofty, some were very specific, then we were going to have to be, better than our parts. We were going to have to be a team that could get stops, that believed in our defense. And from that point on, I think, today we're 25th in the country, KenPom, and maybe that shakes out and we're a spot or two away, or who knows. But in 1 year to become a top 25 defensive team with a collection of guys that had never heard of pack line nor understood how it was played, without really any rim protectors, and without really great size on the perimeter, I'm really proud of our team to be able to compete the way we did defensively. Now we came up short on some games, and it was a tough last month because we wanted to be better. and felt like we could have been better. But when I look back at this team, I just feel like defensively we came a long way, and it was that belief that we could be better than our parts that I always remember about this group.
Chris, when you look at two-part question, the ACC announced opening game at Miami on the schedule. Do you like a conference game, or are you going to have to play it first and kind of see? I mean, do you like that being early on? And then the second part, I assume the schedule will be just as tough next year. It looks that way early on at least.
Well, a big part of the schedule, again, was done before we got here. You know, a lot of the exempt events, you know, they're planned years in advance. And to just say, hey, we want to play in Maui, or we want to play, you know, in the Bahamas, it just doesn't happen. They'll pencil you in for 2030, you know, and get back to you. So, you know, from that standpoint, we had a lot of games that were already on the schedule. You know, moving to 20 conference games makes our schedule even tougher. You know, you're not going to lose the ACC Big Ten Challenge. You're always going to play Kentucky. You know, we obviously have a new series starting up with Western Kentucky. So, man, 80%, 90% of your schedule is like already hammered out before you know, sit down in your chair. We're always going to have one of the best schedules in the country. I don't know if it'll be as challenging as this past years, but we're always going to have one of the best. And then when you see our partners and who we played, you know, we didn't have chopped liver either. So, answer to the first part of the question, ACC game to start the year, you know, I'm not a huge fan, but is what it is.
When you have a couple guys going through the draft process, you mentioned that it's your job to get them all the information that they can have.
Well, it's the NBA's job.
Or
yeah, pass that
you help
along.
them out and all that stuff. Do you offer an opinion in that, or do you want them to kind of formulate their own decision?
No, I absolutely offer my opinion, but that's what it is. It's an opinion. I think it's a valid one. I think it's an honest one, because I'm with these guys every single day. You know, I know where their strengths lie. I know where the deficiencies lie. You know, and watching guys go through the process year after year after year, see the guys that have made it, see the guys that have made it for a little bit, see the guys that have lasted, see the guys who've never gotten a shot, guys that return to school. I mean, see the whole gamut. You know, you feel like you have a really good Rolodex of information to go back on and say, hey, these are my thoughts. And having said that, when a player and their family make the decision, you know, I'm always going to be supportive. I mean, it's not going to be combative. I always want them to feel like, you know, they can trust that I'm going to give them their, you know, my honest opinion.
In what areas do you think the incoming freshman will be able to help you the most?
That remains to be seen. You know, it's a huge jump from high school to college. It is a huge jump, and I think that because of a variety of reasons, it seems to look easier because of the Zions and the RJs, not necessarily to fans, but to the players themselves, you know, and it's a lot harder than it looks. You know, so much has been made about, you know, the teams that are left right now are veteran teams, you know, teams with not a lot of one and dones, and I think there's some truth to that. You know, it's hard when you've never been in situations before, when you haven't been in tight games, when the guys that you're lining up against have been, when they've lost in the NCAA tournament, you know, when they've worked an entire off season with that in their minds. It's tough. And I think there's something to be said for experience. Having said that, I think our freshmen are extremely talented. I think they all bring different things to the table. There's going to be an adjustment period. This summer is going to be huge for them. That's why we're going to be counting on our veterans to, you know, to really help them understand what expectations and standards are in our program. But each one of them can help our program and are going to help our program, you know, next year.
How important is it to get them here as soon as they possibly can?
I think it's important, but, you know, what they're about to experience is the longest commitment to basketball that they've ever faced. And so, as excited as I am to get them here, I want to make equally sure that we have their attention in February and March down the stretch, and not make the season any longer than it needs to be for them, if that makes sense. But in terms of getting them bigger and stronger, and getting to know their teammates, getting to know their coaching staff, us getting to know how best they respond to coaching, that's huge. But we got enough time to figure that out before we start playing games.
To bounce off the fact of the freshmen coming in, obviously you just said you're not sure what they'll do, but they are a highly touted class. With the returning guys and them, there will be more eyes on the program on, what do you have for year 2? Do you embrace the fact that there will be more eyes on what you guys can do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People, I think, ask me all the time, like, how do you think the first season, went, and, what were your expectations, and did they get mad? And, I just look at it as this is a process, and we're moving our program in the direction to compete for conference titles, tournament titles, and that's a hard process. That's a narrow eye of the needle to get through, if you will. But we are on the right track. I love the guys that we have coming in. I think they're going to add a whole lot. The more expectations, the better. I was disappointed with the last 10 games of the season, not in our players, but that we couldn't get over the hump in certain games. But we're moving in the right direction. And to think that where we were a year ago, when some fifth-year grad transfers wouldn't answer my phone calls, didn't want to visit, recruits didn't really feel Louisville, to sitting here off an NCAA tournament appearance with some of the best high-character guys I've been around before, knowing that we have a top 10 class in the country coming in. We're going to be at 13 scholarships versus, 10. We're really excited about next season.
When did that change, though? I mean, in terms of really getting that attention from recruits, and how much did the grad transfers that you got in here to help that process?
I don't think I could point to one moment and say it changed. I think Kristen Cunningham saying I'm coming to Louisville helped. I think Josh Nickelberry saying I'm coming to Louisville really helped. And unbeknownst to our coaching staff, every kid always says, "Coach, I'm going to recruit these other guys you're recruiting." You always sort of shake your head, "Yeah, I appreciate it." They generally just maybe text the kid, "Hey, why don't you come to Louisville with me?" And that's it. But I guess Josh really worked those guys, and that's great. But I can't point to one particular moment and say it changed right here. And we were always a coaching staff that felt like it was going to change, and just got to keep believing and keep making Louisville cool, and keep doing what we had to do.
How different will the offseason be recruiting-wise with all the new rules and the new things? And will you all change your strategy at all moving forward?
It's just harder with the limited AAU days to get your eyes on as many kids as you have in years past. So we're still working through that, still trying to figure out who's going to be where, what state associations are going to be doing things, what does the NBA Players Camp look like in terms of, who do we miss, who do we not see. So it's going to be very, very different. But for us, we don't feel like it's going to be as big of a class as 2019 was, but it's still going to be every bit as important. What you want to do is continue to stack really good classes together, and so it's huge when you're at Louisville, and we need to get good players.
When your state association, which I don't believe Kentucky is going to do things, does that hurt your program? Does that hurt the programs in the state of Kentucky?
I think it hurts the high school players. I think the Louisvilles of the world will be fine. We got great high school coaches in the state, in this region, that'll email us, word of mouth. Like, we'll get to see those kids at some point. But their opportunities get really limited. So.
And then will you do your camps? Will you have any kind of elite camps? And then I guess you will have your kiddie camps?
We elected this summer not to have team camps. Like a year ago, it just wasn't feasible. Most of the teams that you'd really want to come to your team camps were already committed elsewhere. And then with the whole, commission putting team camps, state associations, and really weren't sure how that was going to look. The last thing we wanted to do was, start a team camp and figure that 80% of the teams that we wanted to get here we couldn't. And I've never been a real big believer in elite camps.
Overall, you mentioned a lot of success that this past team has had over cheering, especially. What would you grade the overall season on an A to F scale?
Pins and needles.
We've all already graded you. We want to hear which one of us you say is right.
Probably a B. Probably a B. I just, man, it was tough the last 10 games. Let's put it that way. And, our effort level was good. The guys came to practice with the right attitude. We just weren't as effective. And we got to get better this offseason.
Anything else?
Chris, is there something?
I'm good.
Chris, is there one thing that you learned about this job in the last year that you couldn't have known when you signed up a year ago?
Not really. I think being a head coach for a long time prepares you, rather well. I knew that fan base would be bigger, opinions would be more varied because there were more opinions, but there's a lot of pride in our program, a lot of people that love our program. But no, I don't think there were anything came up that surprised me. I don't think.
How specific do you always hear about coaches, especially on the football side, with their signees before they get to school, giving them very specific workout regimens and all that. So how specific do you guys get with your signees before they get to school?
I think Coach Kettler has an expectation that they're doing something in the weight room. So much of that is a function of what they have access to, including what they can eat. So often one of the big differences from high school to college is, is just the physical difference. It can overwhelm a freshman. If you had to all of a sudden hold your ground in the post versus Steven Enoch, that's different than the 6'4" kid in high school that they called up from the JV, right before tournament play that was trying to push you around. I think that's a big part of it. Until you're in the gym with the guys, it's hard to say. It's hard to convey. This is the footwork. This is what's important. I think you really have to be hands-on with. At least that's how I feel. I really want to be hands-on, and you just got to be in the gym. I know these guys are workers. I know they're trying to improve, but we'll worry about getting our hands on them when they get here and giving them specific information on where they need to get better.
You had a lot of guys improve, but Malik in the last month or so really stepped up his game. Did he take a step in the right direction in your mind as far as where you want him to be as a player?
I thought Malik had as big of an improvement as anybody on our team. When you watch tape of him as a freshman, he just got thrown around, and he was effective when he could make a pick and pop three. And I thought this year he was a really good defender. Virtually every game, he affected things at the rim. He's extremely intelligent. He sees things happening. He gets, get on the floor. Not many guys that play the 4 or 5 are willing to put their chest on the floor and dive for a loose ball and come up with things. And what he maybe lacks in strength, hopefully he's going to make up a lot of that ground again over the summer. He makes up for in this hustle. I think offensively he has a ways to go. I asked him the other day, like, hey, what are you great at? Like, what on offense do you really hang your hat on, or can you hang your hat on? And he looked at me for a few seconds and said, I'm not sure. And I thought that was a great answer, because he's right. He's got to figure out, he's got to figure out what his game is on offense. His game is not just floating around shooting threes. And if it was, he'd shoot 45% from three and he'd have a green light every time he touched the ball. But he was closer to 30%. And so he's got to get a whole lot of reps in there. I referenced Channing Frye with him, who's about to retire from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Channing Frye is 98th all-time in the history of the NBA in made threes. 98th. I mean, that includes Detlef Schrempf, Larry Bird, Steph Curry. It was 98th. You know how many threes he shot in his career at Arizona? Which I don't know how many years he played, 2, 3. I don't think he was a one and done. He shot 24 threes in his career. So it's like he's got to be more than just a guy that makes pick and pop threes. And I think he took a step forward. He's still not completely comfortable with his back to the basket, but the improvement he made from last year to this year, hopefully lights a fire under him to improve even more, because we're going to need him to get better.
Have you been to a Kentucky Derby before, or are you going to go this year?
I don't know if I can officially say I went to one, because it was a downpour all year last year. Maybe the most miserable experience I've ever had. Thankfully, Vince got us some tickets that were indoors, and so I'll make it there a second year in hopes that it doesn't rain harder than it did last year.
So do you pay attention to horse racing at all? Are you betting on anything?
I don't pay attention to horse racing, and absolutely I bet on things that I'm allowed to.
Fit right in.
Blackjack, horses. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite this weekend?
I'd love to see a team in our conference, Virginia, win it all. I think what Coach Bennett, his program went through. I think the heartache of losing in such a visible manner, and for those guys to have the wherewithal to swallow that, for everybody to see, to let them use that as fuel to be in a situation where they're down 3 points with 5.5 seconds to go at the free throw line. It says a lot about that team's character and their coach's character, and so you want to see a conference member do well, and I think there's not a person in the country who wouldn't say Tony Bennett does it the wrong way. I mean, he does it the right way, so you root for those type of guys. But I'm hoping that our program and our guys can sort of take a page out of their book and going from one year to the next. Thanks.